Yes, hello and welcome to the Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Mike Duffy, and as always, my co-host Ben Aiton. Now, you've had one ex-player interview from us, which was Paul Robinson. We hope you enjoyed that one very, very much. And now it's for the second ex-player interview in this international break, because international break's rubbish. I'm pleased to announce that we're actually joined by ex-Watford striker Marlon King. Now, Marlon, thank you very much for coming on. How's life treating you at the moment? Is COVID a big thing over in Zambia? Is it where you're living at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in Zambia. It's not too bad, to be fair. Numbers are relatively low. It's not like the UK and the rest of Europe. But yeah, I think it's weather based. It's really, really hot here. So, the COVID don't really get a chance to settle. So it hasn't been such a panic in terms of the rest of the world, luckily. But obviously with you guys and my family and friends over there, I just hope you guys are safe,
Yeah, no, absolutely, and hopefully it stays that way over there for you guys. Let's get straight into it. Obviously, you joined Watford in 2005. Initially, was on loan from Nottingham Forest. How did the move come about?
To be fair, I met Adrian Boothroyd at Leeds, because from Forest, I went to Leeds on loan for like the last 6-7 games. And he was first team coach. He took the kind of training sessions under Kevin Blackwell.
Yeah.
So obviously the players that weren't playing I think we had like Rob Hulse, Aaron Lennon. I mean, the Leeds squad was quite strong at the time. And then when I got there, I was played on the wing. It was just to kind of see out the season. So AD always took like the training sessions. And he always used to say to me, look, what's happening, and ask me questions about what's going on. I might have something coming up in the summer, which you take it on, but you don't really, because I didn't know much about AD at the time.
Yeah.
So I went back to Forest, finished my loan at Leeds, went back to Forest. And then I had a few options. And then I got a phone call from AD, said he got the Watford job. And he'd love me to come down there and take a look and see what he's doing, and sold me the dream. And I ended up signing on loan, because I think at the time it was a loan with the option to purchase. But I also went to speak to Wolves and Cardiff. I met Glenn Hoddle at that time, because they just got relegated. So they had Paul Ince and a few other players. But when I spoke to AD, it was kind of, I had that bond. The players he was talking about bringing in, everyone had a point to prove, and they just wanted to make me his number 9. So that kind of sold it for me. And I just thought, back down to Hertfordshire as well, which is London, where I'm from. And I thought it was a perfect kind of suit.
You endured a bit of a tough time at the struggling Forest side. It looks like it was 10 goals in 50 appearances, and then you came to Watford on loan and hit the ground running. You got 12 goals in 21 games. What was the difference at Watford?
I think at the time that I wouldn't recommend any player to move in January. And I kind of left to go Forest. And if you look at my moves in January, they've never kind of worked out. You need that full pre-season, to join a club. I'm not making any excuse. It didn't work out for me at Forest, and I would have liked it to make it for me to enjoy myself there. But that's just football. And I think when I got to Forest, it was kind of like, big club, because I remember I came from the non-league through Barnet up to Gillingham. So I was used to the lower leagues, and then I got to the Championship. I was feeling my feet, and then I got to Forest, and I was a bit not taken back, but it was kind of like. And then we had like Marlon Harewood just left, and then David Johnson and a few other players I didn't really get a chance to settle. And if anybody anything about Forest, it's a big club, and the fans, if you don't hit the ground running, can get on you. And I think that's kind of what happened to me, and I just saw my time out there. And then they had an influx of managers, Joe Kinnear, Gary Megson, and I just never really hit it off there. I was going through the motions, and then I think Watford came about the right time, and then obviously the rest is history, really.
Yeah, you mentioned there You know, you couldn't really get the right flow, but you didn't waste any time getting stuck in at Watford. As Ben mentioned there, 12 goals in 21 games. It's actually 4 in your first 4 games. At what stage did you think, yeah, this is right for me? I can do something here?
I think pre-season, I'll be honest, it was it just felt right. The gaffer just had a bond, and just the feel of the club. And to be honest, when I first got there, the fans, there wasn't much excitement because you guys had let go. I think Heider Helgensen, Webb's left. So it was a bit of doom and gloom. And then AD himself, he was an unknown quantity. So it was like, you wasn't sure. And then I think Watford that season were relegation favourites, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we was.
It was like, it was week by week, and then the gaffer was bringing in different players. And if you look at the players he brought in, it was players that had a point to prove. And if you speak to Jay Demerick, speak to Hendo, just came from, I think, either Reading or Gillingham. Jordan Stewart came from Leicester. People where they felt like they weren't wanted, and then the gaffer, we just all kind of fed into his philosophy and his way of thinking, and he just put a team together with the current players, with Youngie, Maka, Mariappa, and then brought in an influx of, experience, and just meshed it really well. And we all kind of felt like, okay. But I would say the Sheffield United game away, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, I felt like at that point, I thought, okay, we are a team to be reckoned with.
That was literally going to be my next question, Marlon. You've read my mind. I was going to say, was there a moment or a game in the season when you thought, yeah, we're in for a run in here, we're going to get promoted? Obviously, you've touched on I think it was 4-1 away at Sheffield United. We came back from behind at Norwich that season and won 3-2, 92nd minute. I think Springy got the goal. Was Sheffield United that moment where you thought, yeah, we mean business, we're going to go up this season?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fans as well, we started to get a bigger away support as well. I realised the fact that the Watford fans really started to make themselves known in the league. Because if you look at, I always say this, that season, if you look at the players and the teams that were in that league that season, was probably one of the toughest seasons for any team to either survive the league or get out of the league, because majority of those teams are in the Premier League. I mean, Sheffield United, Leeds, Wolves, Palace, ourselves. And if you look at the players like Andy Johnson, the Rob Holses, all the players that were around, they were like Clinton Morrison's. It was a really, really tough season. And I think when we went to Sheffield United, obviously Neil Warnock, you read the programs, his demeanour, you know what Warnock's like. He knows the league inside and out. And to go to Sheffield United, and they had pretty much a full house. They had Unsworth at the back. They had so many good players, and to go there and win the way we did, I felt like that's when that gave us that extra step.
Yeah, a lot's made about Adi Boothroyd and his approach and stuff he worked on. It's not the usual stuff a manager would work on. Would you say that in terms of that, he's the best coach or manager you've worked under in your career, or?
Yeah, I'd say for man management, because I've worked for quite a lot of managers and they all possess different skill sets. And I always say this, sometimes it's not about knowing the game like Arsene Wenger, where he's a technical genius. Sometimes it's about having man management as well. And AD had a bit of both. I mean, I class him as a family friend. He was at my wedding. I think it was the only other day I was speaking to him. We still keep in contact. So he just knew when to put a rocket up someone's butt and when to put his arm around them. And that's the magic that he had. And if you look at the success of the 21s, at that time, the way we played, it wasn't attractive on the eye because you had Fozzie in goal. And the gaffer knew he had one of the best, he was one of the best strikers of a goalkeeper in, the league. And he just utilised that. And he brought in players that that worked. I mean, it weren't the Guardiola style, and it was the long ball kind of route. It was probably the end of that kind of era, but it worked. And he knew when to drop players. He knew when to bring players in, and everybody that came in, from Mariappa, from McNamee, from Al Bangora, players were getting dropped, but they didn't walk around with, you know, they didn't spit their dummy out, because everybody knew they was going to get their opportunity, and when they did, everybody done their job, you know. So he just had that special kind of bond with the team.
Just quickly before I go into my next question, I think I saw something online saying it was all like mind games as well, and trying to like psych out the oppositions. Is it true that AD Boothroyd sorted out like tunnel intimidation lessons for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, look, he had this philosophy that we would beat a team before we actually got on the pitch. So, and we had characters like Jordan Stewart, Youngie, myself. You know, when Big Dan Shitu came in, we got into the tunnel, and we pretty much, whether it was home or away, we were jumping up and down. We were, you know, we fed into that kind of whole mindset of, we're beating you. He would tell us, look at your opposition. If you're playing up against Butler at Leeds, or an Unsworth, or a Jagielka, or a Lescott, whoever it was, you're going to beat them before. Like, you get in the tunnel, you look at them, and you make sure you, from the first time you touch that ball, whether you touch them, you push them, or whatever. If you look at like certain players like Hendo, Gavin, McMahon, Springy, their first tackles were like, it was straight from the off, and he believed in that kind of mental mindset of beating the opposition before the game had actually started, and that worked for us.
You were the top goal scorer in the division in 2005 and 2006. How instrumental was it having like the players of like Ashley Young and Hendo alongside you? I think we had a look earlier. Combined, you guys scored 50 goals in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, when I tell this story all the time, I mean, Young is a really good pal of mine, and he's gone on to have a fantastic career. But when I got to Watford, he was pretty much, and he will tell you himself, he was pretty much a trialist in the change room. And when the gaffer brought in certain players and started to give Youngie more of a free access and saw what he was capable of, he just grew in stature. And, you know, he's gone on to captain Man United in England and play for Inter Milan. We had players, Hendo was an absolute machine. The whole squad was just, you know, everybody played their role. And then I think the fans as well fed in to what we was doing. They weren't sure where the season was going to go. But I think what played in our advantage was there was no expectation. So it was like, oh, okay, who's AD Boothroyd? Okay, Marlon King, he struggled at Forest. Okay, Hendo. Okay. And then as we went on, fans started coming more and more and more and more and more. And then the chairman started investing more. And then you just said, you guys have gone on to grow as an established, not an up and down, but an established Premier League club. And I think everybody fed into the whole philosophy is that we're all here to do a job for each other. There was no single player that was going to win the league or get us promoted. It was everybody's got a job to do.
Yeah, you mentioned the Premier League. Obviously, you know, we've been in the Premier League the last 5 years before the relegation. We got promotion that season thanks to a brilliant 3-0 win over Leeds at the Millennium Stadium. Now, you touched on it earlier. You went to Leeds on loan before you come to Watford, and you played under Kevin Blackwell. And you mentioned that you sort of played out on the wing. So really, you sort of played out of position. When you was in that final at the Millennium Stadium, was you thinking, right, let's show him what he's missed out on, or did that not come into it at all? Was you just focused on getting the win for Watford?
I think we speak about it now. I think if you speak to Springy, I think if you speak to Hendo, even AD himself, I think if you in the back of the mind, you do think about it. But I think that went on when we played them home and away. It was kind of I don't think it was just a playoff final, but and I tell this story all the time, and I'm sure a lot of the boys will back me up. I felt and we felt that they kind of felt like they already won that playoff final because of the stature of their club. I don't know how those supporters saw it from the outside, but speaking to my wife and speaking to Nikki Young or some of the other females, when they got to the stadium, like the players' lounge was, all the boxes were taken. You know, it was kind of like we were the smaller club, so you know we'll take the back seat, kind of thing. And then obviously their fan base is huge. But the gaffer had us. I'm sure we've touched on this before. Go to the stadium about 2 days before. We drove all the way up to Cardiff, and he made us stay there and walk around the stadium when it was the tunnel, everything. So it was kind of premeditated what we was going to do. Then he put on the movie, put in Any Given Sunday. He had Al Pacino's speech, Gladiator. And then with the hotel, he had the hotel where we had a section to ourselves, and then he just had he knew the boys like to play table tennis and play. There was, you had Hammer Boatza, they were having little football games in the hallway. Me, Jordan, Youngie were playing table tennis. It was such a relaxed environment, but we also knew our job. And then when we got to the stadium on the day of the game, it was a situation of we just zoned out, and it was it weren't so much a point to prove, but we weren't going to lose that game. That was our mindset. And I'm sure Jay and Hendo touched on it. When we was in that tunnel, you could see that you could feel the aura and the atmosphere of the Watford players to the Leeds players. The Leeds players were kind of like tunnel vision, and we were just bouncing. We couldn't wait, and it was just, you relive these moments, and it just doesn't leave you.
How did it feel that day to win 3-0 and get one over Leeds and become a Premiership player?
I think for the whole lot of us, it was, you saw us at the end of the game, because that pitch is massive, and they were playing rugby on it during that season as well, so it was really, really heavy. So a lot of the boys were cramping up the last 10, 15 minutes. And even when I got the penalty, when Springy put me through, it's really, maybe from the fans' standpoint, you couldn't see how muddy and heavy it was. It was really muddy. And then I checked back on, I think it was Sean Derry, and we got the penalty. And then to see that going, because that 2-0, it's still a little bit edgy. But then when Hundo scored the penalty, everybody kind of okay, let's just see it through. This is us now, So we all collapsed, and we see you guys just celebrating. It was just an amazing day,
You was the top. How proud did it make you feel picking up the club's Player of the Season award that season as well?
Yeah, I think it just topped off on a magnificent season for me personally, and I just think for the whole, because I think me and Youngie got in the PFA. I'm not sure. Did Fozzie get in the PFA? I'm not sure if it was me, Youngie, and Fozzie got in the PFA Team of the Year. So it was good to have 3 players from Watford in the PFA, because, as I said, the players in that league that season have gone on to have very, very good Premier League careers, or in and around the Championship, have gone on to have solid careers. So it was a really, really tough season, even up to Plymouth away. It was such a random mix of teams, and everybody had a point to prove, and nobody really knew where to place Watford, because it was okay, well, a lot of ex-Premier League players have left. A bit of doom and gloom. Are they going to be relegated? Are they going to kick on? New manager, time to settle, and all of that stuff. So to end up the way we did, I think if you speak to any of the boys, and even if you speak to Youngie, he will tell you that season was quite special for him as well as everybody else.
Yeah, Ben mentioned there, you were a Premier League player, and a bit like how your Watford career started, it didn't take you long to get going in the Prem. It was a second game in against West Ham at home, and still, what a corker of a goal it was. What's the general thought process from you? Yeah, I can do it at this level, with it being your first time as a Premier League player.
Yeah, no, I started to hit the ground running. I felt my feet, and then just obviously playing at the Vicarage Road, which it started to be a full capacity stadium, and it was everybody was turning out. And you could just see the boys just slowly growing into themselves. Like, okay, this is where we belong, sort of thing. And even the Fulham game, which we should have kind of won that game, but that was a learning experience. And it was just, for me personally, it was an up and down season. But yeah, West Ham game I'd love to have had that goal, it being the winning goal, but obviously Bobby Z, he got an equaliser, which was a bit unfortunate, but it's just one of those things.
You suffered an injury away at Arsenal, and in your return, I think you suffered a relapse and discovered a bone flaked away from your femur. Just kept you out for about 6 months. How did you keep yourself motivated and hungry for your return?
Yeah, as I said, as I just touched, it was an up and down season for me. And obviously being an Arsenal supporter, I just felt it go. I think I got through the game, but after the game, my knee just absolutely blew up, and then I went to see a specialist in Harley Street, and it wasn't just the case of, well, we're going to fix your knee. They were just saying that you might have to retire. So it was. I had my wife crying beside me, my mum and stuff. So it was pretty much. It was highs and lows, and then in my head, I was like, okay, got to get over it. They've got their advice, I've got my opinion. Let me work as hard as possible to get back and see if I can get a few games in before the end of the season. And I just pushed myself. I've told these stories a few times. I occupied my time. So after rehab and training, I didn't go home. Me and my wife were going to auctions, because at that time, like, the UK was in a recession, so property prices were really, really low. So me and my wife will be at auctions, we'll be looking at repossessions, and we bought quite a few properties, because I thought, okay, I've got this income coming in, I'm injured, there's nothing else I can do, so let me invest my money and keep myself occupied. And luckily I came back, I think the last, was it 4 games? I know I came on the Man United game. Was it FA Cup?
It was, yeah. That was going to be my next question, actually. You come on as a substitute against Man United in the FA Cup semi-final at Villa Park. And I mean, I didn't know that when you went to see a specialist, they said you're probably going to have to look at retiring. So considering they said that, and then you was going all these auctions, etc., I bet it was just a massive, massive sigh of relief that A, was back, and B, you were sort of playing in a big game, I suppose.
Yeah, I was just buzzing to be back. I mean, the gaffer and the medical staff had to hold me back, because if I could have come back 2 months earlier, I would have. And they were quite because all the programs they were giving me, it was like, that's it, I'm zoned out. Because sometimes, when you're given a program, you can switch off and, oh no, I'm not going to do it today. I'm not, but I was like, no, I was adamant. I want to get back. I want to finish the season and try and get myself back in the mix. And it was very, very difficult to see the other boys playing while you're injured on the Prem. So it weren't even just like the Championship where you caught it on earlier on the Championship football. It was like match of the day. You had to watch the games and stuff. And sitting at home and you're on the icing machine, you're on the bending machine, and you're in the gym, it can be quite demoralising. So that's where you've got to be mentally tough to say, okay, no, let me focus, because I still want a part of that. But then in the back of my mind, I really need to, while I was before, but I thought I really need to, just in case anything happens, I need to put myself in a position that if my career does end, I'm still comfortable. So that was kind of my process as well.
Yeah, and Ben, sorry, I know you've got a question lined up here, but I just want to say, off the back of what you've said, obviously you had to watch the boys week in, week out, and we know that you're a confident player. Quick question, do you think had you been fit for the whole season, we would have stayed up? Because you were an instrumental player for Watford.
I would like to think that I could have played a role. I felt I could have at least got myself 10, 15 goals that season. Mm-hmm. And if you ask any team in and around the lower half or in the Prem, you need a striker, or you need a player that's gonna get you that 10, 15 plus to kind of, and then everybody else chips in to get points here and there. And I felt like with Youngie scoring and Amos scoring and like getting little results here and there, I felt like I would have gone on to get 15 that season.
We touched on earlier at the start that you're living over in Zambia now. Is there any plans for you to get back into football now?
No, not at all. To be honest, even when I was playing, I never had no aspirations to be a coach. Which is funny enough. I think I've always appreciated what the game has done for me, but I've been a person I want to challenge myself at something else, and I just ain't got the patience, guys. I'll be honest. I ain't got the patience to coach, and I look at, I just think to myself like, with what's happened in my career, my life, and my ups and downs, I've never had the comfort to kind of just put all my eggs in one basket. So whenever I've been in trouble or I've been injured, I've always, in the back of my mind, I've always been investing in other things outside of the game. So whether it's an injury that might end my career, I'm always thinking, okay, this is a direction that I might have to take outside of football. So, I've got my own construction company, real estate company now. So I don't really focus too much on the whole coaching side. I mean, whether it's charity or bits and bobs, I'll try my best to play a role. But I just believe life's bigger than football. That's just my personal opinion. And as I said, with the whole COVID situation, it just shows you that things can just change just like that.
Yeah, absolutely indeed. We're going to finish the interview off with just a couple of quick fire questions, starting with your favourite goal for Watford.
It's a tough one, right? Championship, I've got to say Palace away, because of the playoffs. Just to get the ball rolling, we was getting hammered, and then Youngie and Springy popped up with 2 class goals, and then Prem's got to be Watford. West Ham.
Yeah.
Against Roy Carroll. So those are my 2, but there are others that I felt were quite decent.
2 quality goals. I'd put the goal against Luton in just because it was against Luton as well. And you put it over the keeper again. What was your favourite game for Watford?
Favourite game? Sheffield United away. Just, and I know Warnock's tried to sign me for a few times. So we've always had discussions, me and him, we've always had like a personal kind of thing going. So to always, whether he be at Palace or Sheffield United or Cardiff, he's always kind of given me a call or whatever. So that game away against 2 brilliant centre-halves, I think Jagielka's obviously gone on to have a great career. And I know Unsworth got sent off, but we absolutely annihilated them, which I enjoyed that game.
I think I know the answer for the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Most talented player you've played with at Watford?
Yeah, for me personally, I'd say Youngie. I wouldn't say he's the most talented player I've played with over my career, but for Watford and what he'd done in terms of assist and goals, which he's gone on to do in his career, that's an obvious one.
Who is the most talented player you played with in your whole career then?
You guys are not going to believe it, but I've got I've got somebody like Sir Alex Ferguson to back me up and say Ravel Morrison. And everybody would, I've played with a lot of quality players, but in terms of natural ability, when you hear Ferguson say like he is the most natural gifted player to come out of Man United, with players like Lingard and Pogba, he's unbelievable. I was at Birmingham with him, and he done stuff that just wasn't normal. And it's just frustrating not to see his career kind of kick on. But if you say for like natural talent, he would have to be the best.
Yeah, you hear a lot of people say that about Ravel Morrison. And then just lastly, who's the toughest opponent you've ever faced for any club?
I've got to say Vidic.
Yeah,
I've got to say Vidic. You play against players like the Ferdinands and the Terrys and stuff, but Vidic, he's just an old school defender. He's no nonsense. Majority of the games he comes off bloody head bandages, And even when the ball's not near you, he's elbowing you. He's just horrible. But he's a sort of person, if you want to go to war, that's the sort of guy you'd want beside you. They should have put him in Universal Soldier with Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme. The guy's just a machine, you know.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of players would probably agree with you. Have they gone up against him? But no, that's brilliant. Thank you very, very much for your time today, Marlon. We really do appreciate it, and hope the business side of things, as you said, you've got your own company. Hopefully, that's not being affected too much by COVID. And yeah, thank you very much for coming on today.
Anytime, guys. You're welcome.
Thank you.